meeting to order. This is the regular school board meeting of the Northfield Public Schools. It is Monday, July 8th, 7 p.m. Dr. Richardson, there were a couple of items in our table file.
Yes, you'll find some personnel items in terms of appointments, increases, decreases, change of assignment, leaves of absence, and resignations. And then also a request for cooperative sponsorship with Arcadia for girls cross country, girls swimming, diving, and for football.
Very good. If there's no objection, we'll add these to the consent grouping as we move forward with the agenda. We are ready to move on to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the community to address the board. And it looks like there is no one here to address the board. Okay. All right. We will move on to approval of the minutes. Board members, you have in your packet the minutes from the last school board meeting, which was on June 10th. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Julie.
Second.
Seconded by Rob. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Announcements and recognition.
Okay, and I do have a few announcements this evening, and actually there's the first two people that we need to talk to, because they're just coming through the door as we speak. I'll do the other two announcements, and then I'll have them be in as the third announcement. I would just like to recognize the fact that last month, basically, Senator Franken specifically mentioned the TORCH program during a statement on immigration reform that he delivered on the U.S. Senate floor. And I actually have a copy of the speech in that section, but he very much was praising Northfield in terms of the TORCH program. And he talked about it being an amazing program that's more than doubled the high school graduation rate for Latino students. He talked about the fact that he had spent about 45 minutes talking with the kids, and I think, their commentary to him about feeling as though, before there really was not much hope of going beyond their high school program, and the fact that now college and post-secondary was really now much more in their sights, and how that had really impacted them. So nice piece to see Northfield recognized on the floor of the Senate as part of that. Also, Northfield High School was just informed that 5 of our swimmers and divers from last year achieved All-American status. This is quite an accomplishment, obviously. These swimmers became All-Americans in the 200 freestyle relay. Those include Greta Baker, Claire Walters, Emily Lundstrom, and Emily Anderson, and also Bailey Dupay is an All-American diver. Again, the head girls swimming and diving coach is Deb Seitz. So again, congratulations to those girls. And then I believe we have Kristen Cade and Amy Etzel, who are here to present to the board a check from the class of 1987 that they want to share a little bit of what they hope it can be used to support.
Yes, and actually Amy Etzel was not able to be here, so I actually have Dr. Jennifer Albers-Fisher here.
Wonderful.
In her place. So I want to thank her for that. Yes, I am representing the class of 1987. We were here in these hallways, actually as we were walking down here, we said, isn't this kind of weird? Things haven't changed that much, but it is just a little surreal. We had our 25th class reunion last summer. It doesn't look that long ago that we were here, but we as a class have been very fortunate to be able to contribute back to our school district. And one of the things that we decided was to donate money to the Angel Fund. And so on behalf of the class of from the class of 1987, we would like to donate $400 to the Angel Fund, just to recognize that there are some kids in this district who are not able to get what they need on a daily basis. So from the class of 1987, $400.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kristen.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Albers.
Okay.
All right.
Those were all the announcements. Thank you very much.
Once again, thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much
Thank
for the
you.
gift. All right, board members, any other announcements or recognition? All right. Move on to our first item for discussion or report, which is the iPad loan agreement. Board members, you would have received in your packet the draft loan agreement.
Well, good evening, everyone. Dr. Richardson reminded me that last year, the July board meeting lasted 8 minutes, and I was not here. And so that was for sure the reason why, but we'll be brief.
And technology is supposed to make things move more
Yes.
quickly, right?
Well, in the packet, you had the iPad loan agreement, which we prefaced at last month's meeting in terms of talking about the change in 524.2 specifically to our policy governing student technology and telecommunications use. And just to let you know how this iPad guide came about, we have had a task force, policy and procedure task force. Ellen Iverson sat on that task force. Greg Gelano, Jackie McKay from the high school, Dan Foley from Sibley, Scott Sanis has been on it. Trying to remember, we had a good 5 to 7 people who were part of that task force. And we looked at a number of different agreements that other school districts throughout the country have used. And we landed about 20 miles from home in terms of that the Farmington agreement was one of the most comprehensive one that we had seen. And the Farmington agreement was really a compilation of the stuff that administrative team had started in West St. Paul with help from Minnetonka, 3 Minnesota schools that really have been on the edge of one-to-one initiatives here in Minnesota. And so what we did is we spoke with Farmington, asked for their permission to use their guide as our model, and we worked to localize it to the pieces that we have talked with you about all along. And so basically, it's longer than we want. I prefer it to be 1 to 2 pages, but the fact is that I really think of this, if you remember back in probably 1996 or 97 when the internet first came into schools, we had all these long documents that parents had to sign to even let their children use the internet. This really feels like that same kind of start, where now, if you don't want your child to use the internet, you have to sign a sheet to say, you can't do that. And I can't think of any student that we've had in the last 5 to 10 years who've signed that. That's just part of education. I think that's where this will end up. But to begin with, there's always lots of questions. And so our hope is that the iPad loan agreement, the parent guide, can be a source for people to go to and look for those questions. The key drivers of this are the same drivers as we use with any kind of good quality student behavior control in any school district. If you really think about it, almost all digital transgressions have an analog counterpart. For example, plagiarism. People have been plagiarizing since the dawn of time. And every time there's some kind of technological advancement, there's always a concern about plagiarism. There will be with this one and with the next one, but we know how to deal with plagiarism. In fact, we have a policy on plagiarism and academic honesty in those pieces. So if a student were to do that with an iPad, we have a guide to go by. We know we hear a lot about bullying. We have a bullying policy. Not only do we have a bullying policy, we have a cyberbullying policy. So we've been enforcing those rules with other devices that the district doesn't own. So we feel that while it's a different device and while we're trying to call out lots of different things, that our administrators and our teachers are well equipped to handle these because they have handled student behavior for decades. And really, this is a change in how students will behave. Many of the transgressions that people may be concerned about are things that we've worked with before. And in addition, finally, the other pieces that we did put in the document is you saw something that we call the living document concept. And the fact that this stuff changes so frequently, we're just really upfront with people about that we will have to change, but we will have to change this at any time. And we also very intentionally put a line in there talking about that the district reserves the right for our administrative staff to use their judgment in circumstances not covered by the guide. For many years, I had a chance to sit on a principal's review board. So it's people who are coming through and getting their principal licensure. And there are 21 standards that they had to present that they were competent in. And invariably, the one I felt was the most important was number 10, judgment. Because as a school administrator or teachers, there are situations that come up every day that we cannot foresee. And so we really believe that we've got a quality administrative team, a quality teaching staff who are very skilled at managing student behavior. There will be some hiccups along the way, but we think the guide really does a good job of giving us that foundation, and we think that their judgment can take it from there. Are there any questions I can answer about the loan agreement?
No?
I have a question, but I didn't realize
Oh,
that I
sorry.
was raising my hand to ask it. Are you asking, do we have a question about this?
Yes, I'm asking if you have a question about that document.
It may be a myth, but iPad, on item 2.1, general precautions, iPads that are stolen must be reported immediately to the principal's office and the police department. Does that mean 2 visits by the student?
Well, typically, we would try to use our police liaison officer
Thank
when we can. But if it's on a weekend, we want them to, we'd rather them over-report than under-report, because in the event that it's stolen, especially if it's outside of school, the police department is
Sure.
gonna be able to help.
John?
There is a line in here about students using their own Apple accounts and Apple IDs.
Correct.
Download apps. What sort of policing or opportunity is there to control that?
Well, at our high school, if you recall, we've talked about for quite a while, we've talked about that the high school students were gonna have more freedom than our middle school students. And that we were going to allow them to tie their device to what we're gonna really push is their family Apple ID. So if their family has an Apple ID that they've already purchased some other apps with, that they are able to tie that to it. Middle school students would not be able to do that. That's where our committees felt the line needs to be crossed, and that's what our public feedback said too at the several meetings that we had in January. So basically, when we find, if we were to find out that a student's misusing the device, we have a system that we are putting in called a mobile device management system that we can give levels of permission to. And if we have a student who has truly been misusing their device, we will lock them into a more restrictive profile that would not allow them to download any further apps or even possibly remove their family apps from the iPad for a certain period of time. I don't know at this point, we haven't seen it completely in action, but the mobile device management system seems to have a tremendous amount of power to look at those kinds of pieces. And one of the strategies a number of one-to-one schools have used is just simply a generic iPad audit whenever a person or a teacher or administrator feels that they might be staying in the hallway and say, hey, let me just check your iPad. And those kinds of pieces will catch a lot of those kinds of things. We don't have the ability to look over every student's shoulder all day, nor do I think we want to do that. But I also know that, having been a principal for a number of years, that kids will tend to tell on other kids. And if we have people who are misusing, there'll be reports of that as well.
And if kids are using them to watch movies or download music, I mean, does that become an issue, or is that something that we're prepared to deal with?
Well, our only concern about movies and music at this point would be, of course, the amount of space that those pieces can take up, and we can actually control whether or not. We actually have said in the agreement that we don't want them connecting it to an iTunes account or to an iTunes library, in terms of the music piece. In fact, I think that's old school for a lot of kids anymore now. They're all using Grooveshark and Pandora and those kinds of pieces that are streaming. And in terms of the films, just with the size of the device, we can actually turn off whether or not they can actually use movies or not. And to begin with, I think that we'll have it on, but if we see that it's problematic, we can turn it off. Is that helpful, John?
It is. I'm just thinking about kids, downloading and watching R-rated movies or something.
What's interesting is that you can actually, on the mobile device management system, you can actually set the level that you want them to be able to put onto the iPad.
So you can have like
PG, yeah.
Sound, so because if you can use your Apple ID, then you can access everything.
That your family has purchased, yeah. And what we've tried to take that approach of the reasonable. There are school districts that let everybody do everything, and there are districts that let people do nothing. And we've tried to have that approach in the middle where our older students, we're going to give them privileges until they prove us otherwise, and our younger students, we're going to start more control and move toward that. There will be problems with that one way or the other, and we'll address them as we go along.
Julie?
So another question along the lines of John's questioning, under 3.5, where you say 9th to 12th grade students and families who are maintaining their own Apple IDs or district iPads may install apps as needed for the purpose of customizing their learning experience. So that's assuming that the app is free, or that if it's purchased through their Apple ID, that the parent would pay for it.
Correct, that's exactly right. We're using what's called a layered approach, where the way that it's supposed to work is that the students will be able to, at the high school level, be able to install their own apps, but then we will also be attaching their iPad to what's called a profile, and so they'll get the apps that the school is going to be using as well.
Thank you.
Will this document be available in Spanish, or will there be interpreters to go through it with families?
I wanted to wait until we heard from you folks that if you had any feedback, we're not asking you to approve this or anything. What we're looking at is that living kind of document. But once I got questions from you, we'll be using our district's interpreter, Mar, to do the translation. They'll be posted on this is a Google Doc actually, so we're just gonna hit the publish button, and it's gonna be available via the web. It'll be available in English very quickly and Spanish as soon as Mar has it done.
So when you're distributing the iPads on the 20th of August or whatever, will this be something that you go through with the parents as they show
Yes,
up?
and that's actually a great segue, because I was gonna give you just a brief update on those.
You're gonna be the straight man on this one, because he was ready for that next piece.
So we wanted to give you just a brief update as well on the distribution events and the other pieces of how things have been going. So we have set the distribution dates, and for the high school students, they're gonna be on August 15th and 20th. Middle school students on August 19th and 21st. We are gonna have some makeup slots at the end of the 21st session, as well as on August 27th. The August 15th date will run from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The other three dates will run, three main dates will run from 12 to 8 p.m. And we're looking at doing a 4 to 8 p.m. for that last makeup day. This is all going to be emailed out to parents in the district via Skylar this week. We just finalized a handful of pieces, because what we are actually doing is we're actually assigning students to time slots, and we're alphabetizing them by school. Unfortunately, we don't, because there's some different rules for middle school and high school students, we're going to try to have middle school and high school be separate. If there are extreme circumstances where there's no way that someone I'm in this situation, I have a middle schooler this coming year and a high schooler, so Mary Hillman will be coming to 2 sessions, and I wish we could have done something different, but I think the rules are just enough different that we really probably should do it that way. But we're gonna assign people to time slots based upon their last name in an effort to try to cluster as many families together as I can. So if I have a 9th and 11th grader, then I can come to one session, and get them both taken care of. So that will be, that's how we're planning to do it. And again, based on some advice from Mr. Peshka, actually we're going to say if you can't make the time slot that we've assigned to you, you can come to any time slot thereafter. In Mr. Peshka's experience, people in that case kind of even themselves out through the other sessions. We're going to have like 21 different sessions, and we'll start off with an orientation. And the orientation we're planning for an hour, approximately 15 to 20 minutes on welcome and the expectations, and our building principals are going to handle that chore. We're going to have about 15 to 20 minutes on here's what's on your device, and then we're going to have 15 to 20 minutes, we're working with our counseling staff at each building to really reinforce the parent guide portion of the document. And that's the beginning. We are planning to hold monthly parent engagement sessions beginning in the fall. We'll see how long they go. But think of it as ECFE for secondary parents. And really the idea is that we're going to be just hosting discussions about parenting in the digital age. And this is a good opportunity with this kind of infiltration of a device into a person's home to open up some community-wide discussions. We have not set those dates yet. That's next on the list. But the fact is that we're hoping to do this. Also, I just want to make mention that we are going to actually do all of the distribution sessions at the middle school. And the reason that we're looking at doing that is it's better than having to move stuff back and forth. If you think about the layout of the middle school, great parking, without a ton of competition at that time of the year from high school activities. The cafeteria is large enough for the stations that we're going to have to get the devices. The auditorium is obviously just gorgeous. And then we're also have real great access to the media center, so we don't think we're going to have to move computers to do the checkout, because what's going to happen is after the orientation, you would pay your fee, or if you could pay it ahead of time using the district's online credit card system, then you'll go to the media center computer and you'll check out a book. And if you've ever watched, or you'll check out an iPad just like you do a book. If you've ever watched them check out high school textbooks here, they do hundreds of people in a 50-minute period, so we're not worried about that. Then they're gonna get, after they get their device, they'll go to a station where they'll plug it into a computer to get this profile that will govern what they can and cannot do to begin with. That'll take about 5 to 7 minutes. Then they'll assemble their cases, which if you want to hand the cases around, we just brought some examples of the cases to show you tonight. And after that, once they show that their case is on sturdily, they can go. And this is also a volunteer opportunity for anybody here, as well as board members. If you'd like to volunteer to be part of these distribution sessions, just to help out, we'd love, let me know if you can make it, and we'd be happy to have you help. So let me just check if Rob, did that cover your question and a little bit more?
Yep.
You gave me a good open, so. Are there any other questions about the guide that I can answer?
This, on the very last page, the student parent pledge for iPad use.
Yes.
Item 14 speaks to no later than the last day of the current school year. On the first page of the document, under purpose, about 2/3 of the way down, it speaks of students who graduate early, withdraw, or terminate enrollment in school for any other reason must return their individual school iPad on the date of termination. So
Well, I think, Noel, if the intent there was to cover people, if you leave, you gotta give it back to us. And basically that last day of school is saying that at this point, we're gonna collect the devices at the end of the first year. Though, who knows, I mean, we may have some other discussions. Many other districts who have gone through this have had some real questions about collecting them even. That might be a discussion that we have, that might be part of the next discussion tonight as well. But Noel, are you comfortable with leaving it that way, or, okay?
it just seemed a little confusing.
Yeah, it's intended for two different audiences.
Sure, okay.
Other questions? Julie?
It's a very nice case, Matt.
Yeah,
It looks close to a OtterBox type.
and we got the big
And the
one.
price was?
Yeah,
We got the price for $31.
nice. It was 60 in the plan, was your
We had
estimate?
budgeted 60,
Nice.
and, which was good. So that's, and it is comparable, it's a military grade, it's a, you can drop it from
Rob
10
has
feet.
disassembled his
Actually,
case.
I did that. He's just trying to fit
The only thing we're a little, and just to be clear, if you looked on the back, there was a little engraving, and that was we had worked with a local company who we really had wanted to try to work with to actually engrave all the cases, but, and they were gonna do it but it was just we had some budgetary concerns about it, and just I think if you look over here, you'll see the boxes that are stacked up, those are the cases, and that's just one set of them. There's a whole other room with a whole bunch. So the sheer magnitude of getting them, getting them inscribed like that was just, we didn't think it was feasible. You have to take them all out of the boxes, put them back, and it didn't seem we could do it. But it was a nice touch. We tried to look at doing it, but just couldn't make it happen.
Well, I think it's an awesome case, and I think parents will really be thrilled to see the durability and the obvious.
Jeff actually did a
use that
site
it can
visit.
potentially take.
Jeff did a site visit to Watertown Mare where they're finishing their first year of a 1-to-1, and they actually did 2 different cases, one for their high school and one for their middle school. And I can't remember whether the high school used the Survivor or the middle school.
Middle school definitely used it.
The middle school used the Survivor, and they said, and the high school did not. So the high school used something different. And the number of devices that were damaged at the middle school was significantly less than that at the high school. So we look at it as part of the insurance program.
Well, I know
And
you
you'd
worked
think on
really
a
hard
normal
on certain-
basis, just the opposite would be the case.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Kudos to you for that, because I know you worked really hard to find that, and I think that's a really.
We had fun. It was great. This is all fun. We're making a difference.
Other questions?
Well, we just wanted to give you that update. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you,
And
Matt.
if you have any other questions, feel free to attend Tech Boot Camp too. Just let me know you're coming, because while our teachers are outstanding with students, sometimes if a board member were just to walk into a session unannounced, not that they could, but it might just throw them a little bit, so we just want to give them a heads up to say, hey, you're coming, so.
Thank you for your leadership on this.
You bet.
All right. Board members, we are ready to move on for our item for individual action, which is the resolution regarding Christopher Columbus Day.
And it is the lone item that we have is in terms of individual action, and again, it's one that we've done every year. It simply allows us to conduct public business on the Christopher Columbus Day holiday. and operate with it as a non-holiday for the Northfield Public Schools for 2013-14. So I would recommend that we go forward to do that as we have in previous years.
Okay, Carrie moves and Noel seconds. This is, Noel did. And this is a roll call.
Correct, because it's a resolution.
Any discussion?
Ready then? Clausen?
Aye.
Maple? Aye. Pritchard?
Aye.
Nelson?
Aye.
Hardy?
Aye.
Strathmore?
Aye.
And Everson.
Aye. Very good. All right, we are ready to move on to the consent grouping. There, as you was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, there are a few personnel appointments and cooperative sponsorship added to the consent grouping. Is there anything anyone wishes to pull from the consent grouping? Julie?
I don't want to pull anything. I just wanted to acknowledge the incredible donation via the Northfield Booster Club in the amount of $18,189, of which $14,803 was helping the fee waivers for high school athletics. So we are greatly indebted to them for the donation, and then there's an additional $4,000 of equipment for a number of our high school teams. So very much appreciated, the Northfield Booster Club.
If there is nothing that anyone wishes to pull, then is there I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent grouping. Moved by Ann,
Second.
seconded by Carrie. All those in favor of approving the consent grouping say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We're ready to move on to items for information.
And there are
There are
none.
none. So, future meeting dates, we have two in August, August 12th and August 26th, and you have in your packet, board members, a full list of dates, including negotiation sessions and our work session, which will be immediately following this board meeting. All right, so I would ask for a motion for adjournment.
Okay.
Moved by Noel,
Second.
second by Ann. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting say aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.